everybody, and thanks for joining me today. So we are starting the final pass across this pattern. We are over 2/3 done. We're close to 68%. So yeah, shouldn't finish it this month, I don't think, but I think we'll be done by next month. So that will be exciting. All right, so I'm gonna get started here. Yeah, we're getting closer to zeros on more numbers. Of course, we'll start hitting our zeros as we go across this final pass. That's always the most exciting. So, some sad personal news. Our guinea pig passed away. Yeah, she lived a good long life. She lived way longer than we thought she would. We don't know exactly how old she was because she was a rescue, but we think she was a year or close to it when we got her, because she wasn't a baby for sure. So she was full grown or pretty close to it. And we had her for like 7.5 years. So they live 6 to 8 years. So yeah, she lived a really good long life. We think she was close to 9. She was at least 8. So yeah, and she was still pretty active right until the last few days. They often, when they go very quickly. A lot of times they just suddenly, they stop eating, and yeah, they don't hang on for too long after that. So yeah, definitely miss her. It's weird to get up and not have her squeaking at me to give her vegetables. Yeah, and I sort of find myself walking multiple times a day past where her cage was, wanting to reach down and pet her head, and oh yeah, she's not there anymore. So yeah, she'll be much missed. Her name was Miss Buster, and how she got her name was kind of funny. Well, whoever had her before us, they left her in a pet carry box in the parking lot outside of one of the pet stores, and it wasn't from that pet store because they only sold boy guinea pigs, and she was a girl. And anyway, she managed to get out of the box, was running all over the parking lot, and the police had to catch her. So when we were trying to come up with names, I said we should call her Buster because she was busted by the police. And my son said, well, we can't call her that. It's a boy's name. And so it was a total joke. I said, well, we could call her Miss Buster, and it stuck. So she was Miss Buster ever since then. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No matter how long we have our furry companions in our lives, it's just never long enough, is it? Yeah. Yeah, there was, almost a year ago, it got to where she didn't want to climb up her ramp because I kept the food up there. And she would go up there and eat the hay and sort of spread it out into like a nest and take a nap in it. And then one day I heard her claws sort of scratching on the ramp, and she couldn't get up the ramp easily. And I was like, oh, it's hard for you, isn't it? Because she was like 7 by then. And so I put all the stuff on the lower level so that she didn't have to walk up there anymore. And I thought, oh man, this might be it. But she lived for almost another year after that. Oops, knocking stuff down. My pardon. Yeah, she lived for almost another year after that. So yeah, and I had to take her twice to go to the vet because her fur started getting thin on one side, and they said, yeah, it's common for older unspayed piggies to get cysts on their ovaries, and then it messes with their hormone balance. So they gave her a couple hormone shots, and her fur grew back, and happened again. We did it another time, and yeah, so she gave us scares, and there was a few months ago, she didn't eat for most of the day. And I thought, oh no, this is it. And, you know, gave her lots of cuddles that night, just in case. Oh, is that correct? Oh, it is, okay. Then when I put her back in the cage for the night, she waddled over to her food and started eating again like nothing had happened. So, and then she was fine for another few months. So, yeah. Yeah, humans, we do this to ourselves, right? We get a pet that's going to have a fraction of our lifespan and get very attached to them. But yeah, I suppose it's worth it in the end, even if it is very sad when they go. They bring us a lot of joy and give us good memories, right? Yeah. Okay, so as I was saying about zeros, there's another one. So yeah, shows up in the list as a new one. And then when the daily counter resets at 4 a.m., so when I start stitching tomorrow, that'll be hidden since I have it toggled for the zeros to be hidden. So it was funny because it was in the Facebook Stitching with Pattern Paper group. Somebody asked, you know, how do I get these new zeros to go away? And she had about, you know, 8 of them. And somebody's like, okay, now you're just showing off, you know, showing all those zeros. So yeah. There we go. So making sure that I pin stitch far enough away from the edge there that it will not go past the edge of the design. So yeah, I switched today from stitching my Firefly, which is on 18 count, and this is 14 count, so I kind of have to get used to the size of the fabric again. Yeah, one of my friends said she had 2 projects. One was 28 count and one was 18 count, so it would be quite the shock from huge to tiny. Yeah, I'm stitching a couple on 18 count. I have this one, and then I have 2 more gridded and ready to go on 14 count. And when I'm done those, we'll see if I want to go to 18 count for my other projects or if I'm going to stick with 14. I may stick with 14 because, like I've said before, I bought a whole bolt of it. And yeah, I kind of don't want it to just sit in a closet never used. Yeah, and I don't really have any so far stitchy members of the next generation to want to hand my craft collection to for when I'm gone. Yeah, there was someone saying that their daughter got some older lady's yarn collection with all her handwritten notes and everything, that their 9-year-old was just in heaven. And I said, oh, that's so sweet. I said, I hope that my craft collection will go to someone who really could appreciate it when I'm gone. Yeah, I remember seeing pictures from an estate sale where the basement almost looked like a yarn shop. The lady had collected so much. Yeah, her husband was trying to sell it off. That's how my book collection used to look before I thinned it down a lot. Yeah, I did a big house purge in, like, I think 2017. Because yeah, the clutter had really built up by then. So yeah, I don't really collect paper books as much anymore. I never thought I'd be an avid ebook reader, but here we are. Yeah, so the percent counter moves a lot faster on this project. Yeah, on my Firefly, to get 0.01% is 55 stitches, so yeah, 1% is like over 5,500. So yeah, that's why it's sort of been a monthly goal for me, because whereas 1% on this is less than 500 stitches. So yeah, to put that in perspective. So I'm thinking maybe reach 80 to 85% this month for this project is probably reasonable. Okay, let's see. I think so. I'm gonna park this right here. Yeah, for now, and then I'm gonna fill in some other stitches above those 3 there. Yeah, I do find my my thread tangles a bit more when I'm working on 18 count as opposed to 14. I use the same number of strands for both too. And I'm thinking it's because, you know, the holes on the 18 are smaller, that it's more likely to get snarled, so. But I mean, knots are kind of inevitable when you stitch long enough. It's gonna happen. Yeah, actually, I'm at 33,000 plus on Firefly, and I'm about to hit 33,000 on this fairly soon. Probably tomorrow, I think. Yeah, I was happy with how much progress I made last month, considering that it was the World Championships of figure skating in the last week of the month, so I was streaming that, so can't stitch through that. Well, I could, but then I'd miss everything. Yeah, it was pretty exciting. One of the men's competitors landed a quadruple axle in competition, so I think that's one of the first, if not the first. Yeah. The axle takes off going forward, so that's 4.5 revolutions. So that's, yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, it's interesting watching the sport progress. It just gets more and more difficult. And so, you know, people who were Olympic and world champions even 10, 20 years ago wouldn't be competitive now. Yeah. Like there was a big talk about, I remember when quad jumps came on the scene in men's skating, and you know, could you win without one? Because for some guys, they have the artistry and they're not able to do the quad jumps consistently. And I said, well, Canadian Jeffrey Buttle, he was world champion without a quad, but I think he's probably the last one who will manage to do that. There's just too many athletes who can consistently do quads now to be able to compete against them. But American Jason Brown, he doesn't do quads, or if he does, it's very rarely, but his artistry is so amazing that he's consistently in the top 10 in the world. I think at the World Championships he came 5th or 6th, something like that. But yeah, he is amazing to watch. His his performance of River Dance Olympics, it had something like over 3 million views within a few days. Yeah. And it's still one of my favorite of his performances. Yeah. Yeah, I've been saying there's some video game music that I think would video game soundtracks that would make some really beautiful pieces for figure skating, but I've never seen them. And my husband said, well, probably they don't have time to play video games, right? They're always training. Yeah, it's not an easy life, that's for sure. We get to see the end result and not the years and hours of training that goes into that, getting to that kind of level. It's no wonder most of them retire from competitive skating before 30, because yeah, it is grueling on your body, that's for sure. Okay, so yeah, reestablishing the diagonal here. Yeah, so yeah, I love figure skating. It's the only sport I follow. It's been interesting watching the new younger skaters arriving on the scene now for the next Olympic cycle. Yeah, and some who stay in. American ice dancers Chalk and Bates are still competing and still at top form. Won the world title. Yeah. Just absolutely incredible. They come up with some amazing pieces. Their last Olympic one was it Daft Punk or Depeche Mode? One of those. And it was she's an alien and he's the astronaut was the story, the theme to their ice dance, and it was so cool. I was really disappointed that they didn't get a medal because yeah, they were so good. Yeah, it certainly changed the scene now that the Russian athletes are not competing internationally at the moment. My goodness, usually I don't have that hard of a time getting the end of that tail to come back to the wrong side. So yeah, working on Goron Link here. I think his arm, and I'm probably working on his fist there. Yeah, again, he was very purple on his face because of the shading, which has kind of looked weird while I was stitching it, but when you back away from the piece, it looks really good. So yeah, if you're interested in this pattern, I do find it is stitching up a bit darker than the mock-up in the shading, but I am happy with how it looks. It's very, very vibrant colors, very pretty. So yeah, it's funny because I think this one I saw was like warning, you know, very big pattern, and then it was like less than 50,000 stitches. Like, well, I guess that's relative compared to, say, a little kit that you can buy at, you know, Walmart. Yeah, it's huge, but compared to a huge full coverage, you know, Heaven and Earth Designs or a RDC or whatever, yeah, it's teeny. Well, it's kind of like Heaven and Earth Designs have what they call minis, because compared to their stuff, it's mini, but it's often the size of what a lot of designers do for their standard size. You know, 200 by 300 stitches or something, yeah. 60,000 stitches. Oop. Yeah, my first full coverage piece was was RDC's Lighthouse at Sunset, and I think it was around, yeah, 60,000 stitches, something like that. So, of course, at the time, that seemed huge to me. Yeah, that was sort of my introduction to the full coverage world. I was thinking, I want a picture of a sunset. And thought, you know what? I could cross stitch one. And yeah. That's how it all began. Okay, 939. Ooh. Oh, pardon me. Thinking I could hit 68% this this session. We'll see. So that's like less than 100 more stitches if my mental math is correct, which I don't guarantee it. Yeah, and my husband was saying the other day that our son is good at history and English language arts and not so good at math. I said, well, then he takes after me. Pardon me. I kicked butt at history. Yeah. It was my favorite subject. Well, my grandpa wanted to be a history teacher. Yeah. He wasn't, but he loved history too, so I got it from him. So it looks like we are finally in the thaw here. There's been a couple little days of a tiny bit of snow, but it wasn't enough to stick, so fingers crossed, hopefully this is finally spring for us. I said, yeah, I never know when to wash all the mittens and toques and things, because I swear if I do, it'll have one last big bunch of snow and then I'll have to wash them again. Yeah. I mean, I do wash them throughout the winter, but yeah, you know, I always want to have, okay, winter's over, I can finally wash everything and pack them away until the next winter. And you could never be sure. Not till we hit the actual heat wave time. Okay. Yeah, well, Easter, so should hopefully be spring. Yeah, my son gets a whole week off school, plus the Good Friday. He gets the Good Friday and then the whole next week. I said, man, when I was a kid, all we got was Good Friday and Easter Monday. We definitely didn't get a whole week. So this color, yeah, I'm going to do another thread as they kind of branch off, so it makes sense to do that. Okay, 823. I have to make sure I keep the 823 far away from the 939 because they are extremely close. It can be hard to tell which is which. They're both a very dark navy blue. They're not quite the same shade, but they're pretty close. So yeah, I don't keep them right next to each other or I may accidentally put a thread back in the wrong slot and mix them up. Yeah, I had one project that was like the first page was all 823 and 939 mixed together. I said, man, this felt so frustrating, all this counting, and when you're up close to it, it was really hard to tell that the colors were even different. I said, I felt like I could have stitched the whole page in just one color and you wouldn't have noticed. It would have been a lot less counting, but yeah, in the end, I'm glad I did it because yes, when you're far enough away from it, you can't actually see it was made to look like different shadowy bits of dark sky. Work with the other thread. So sometimes, depending on the colors, my diagonal ends up a little more square for a while. Try that again. Okay. I put up a new picture on my Insta, and I have fixed the one wonky stitch that was in Link's hair, the main one in the center. So yeah, the viewer pointed it out to me. I hadn't noticed, but yeah, so I was able to fix that. That would have really annoyed me if I'd found it after it was all finished and hung up. Yeah, my son turned 16 recently, so he's talking about going for his road test. Like, I am not ready. And I told him, yeah, and don't worry if you don't pass the first time. I know almost nobody who did. fact, I know there are some of the instructors who don't pass anybody the first time just on principle. So, yeah, I got mine on my second try. Let's take a look at how long this piece is. It's a fairly decent length, but I think, yeah, I'm going to be dividing this color into more than one strand, so that's fine. More than one way I could have chosen to do this. Just have to pick one. Okay, so I often like to start sort of from the right and work in, but because of the way this color is shaped, I'm going to actually start at the left and work out. Fluffies here. Just use my snag tool to coax those to go to the back. There we go. Missed the spot. Split the fabric coming up, and so stitch would have looked wonky. Oh, darn. I hate when that happens. Sometimes all of the fibers don't go through the eye of the needle, and then when you try to pull it through the needle, it shreds. Okay. Sometimes I can manage to get it to cooperate, but sometimes the only solution is to cut that damaged portion off. Start afresh. There we go. Yeah, I gotta be careful sometimes because the pin stitches are in the middle. Sometimes your needle will go that way and split the fabric when you're doing a regular stitch, and you don't want that. So then you'll have a missing gap. Between two stitches, and especially with a dark color on a light fabric, it can be very noticeable. I got a lot of pin stitches in this area, so there's a lot of fuzzies there. Yeah, 67.9. So we should definitely hit 68. Oh, I thought that was on markup, but it was not. Yeah, double tapping in move mode will just highlight, select or unselect a color, so it doesn't work to park it, because that's what double tap does in the mark mode. Will park it if you have it set up. Of course, you have to actually go into the settings and set that up. Ooh, excuse me. My gosh. Yeah, so I saw they reopened some little Zellers outlets inside the Bay stores. Zellers was a Canadian retail chain similar to Walmart, and yeah, they went under. I'm trying to think now. Oh gee, 2010 or something like that. Yeah, and then Target tried to come in to the to take over those spaces, and yeah, they never made a go of it. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long. Yeah. Well, they spent a bunch of time renovating, and sort of by the time they were ready to open, people had started shopping at other places, and I think I remember reading they said that once somebody has started going to a new place for about 3 months, getting them to switch is a lot harder. They kind of get set in their ways at that point. So yeah, they often recommend to stores that if you have to renovate, don't actually close down completely, because yeah, if you do, people have to go somewhere else, and when you reopen, it can be hard to get them to come back. So yeah, I have friends in the US who are just shocked that you guys don't have Target. It's like, yeah, only lasted like a year or two here, and then that was it. We didn't get one at the mall I'm in because it's not big enough. We don't have a Bay store here. Man, it was funny. I was saying I was a kid. It wasn't until I was like in high school that I learned that the Bay department store was the same as the Hudson's Bay Company that we studied in social studies class. It was only because we went to one of the bigger stores in like Vancouver or something, and instead of the Bay, it said the Hudson's Bay Company. I'm like, wait, they're the same thing? I didn't know. I'm actually kind of surprised they're still around, because yeah, department stores have just kind of gone the way of the evening newspaper. Yeah. We had Eaton's was another Canadian chain. They went under in the 90s, I believe. Yeah, and then of course Sears was a few years ago. Yeah, I said Christmas wasn't quite the same without the Sears wish book, right? You get that great big catalog in the mail and go through it looking at all the stuff. Well, our Sears here struggled too because, well, they were one of the anchor stores in the mall, but they weren't allowed to build a second story. A lot of them will be sort of at that, you know, the end of the mall, and then even if the mall isn't 2 stories, they will build a second story for themselves. But yeah, our local mall wouldn't let them. So yeah, it was extremely crowded and harder to shop in there because yeah, they had to cram everything into one level. So yeah, it's sure different than when I was a kid. I remember when we'd go shopping and we'd hit all the department stores looking, oh, what was I getting a new piece of thread for when there was one right there? Can't read. Yeah, and I even marked on there that there was one parked there, and I still had a brain fart there. Yeah, it's like trying to explain to my son that it's different than, say, Walmart. He's like, but they have different departments too. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's still, I don't know. It's hard to explain how the big department stores like the Bay and Eaton's and stuff, how they were different, but they just were. Yeah, it looks like I actually will need that little piece of thread later when I do the stitch lower down. This thread is just unfortunately not going to be enough to manage to do one more stitch out of them. There was a show that called The Paradise, which was like about sort of the birth of the department store. Yeah, it was fun. Only lasted a couple seasons, unfortunately, but yeah. They showed the guy starting a lot of stuff that like we take for granted now that was considered, you know, just a total wild out there idea back then. Like he had 10% off everything in the store sale, or he opened up lines of credit, you know, charge accounts for people so they didn't have to pay right away. And yeah, it's all sorts of different stuff. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I wish it had gone on for more than 2 seasons. And you could tell that they were hoping for it to last more than 2 seasons because in the second season, they sort of set up so many, you know, what looked like unsolvable obstacles to the romance of the main couple. And then in the last episode, in the last 10 minutes, they just sort of like, oh, I guess that's not a problem anymore. You know, they wrapped it up so quickly that, yeah. You could tell that they were sort of told, sorry, show's canceled, figure out a way to end it. And so that they had to just sort of throw it together at the end. It was meant to be told over, you know, more seasons, and they didn't get them. So rather than leave a cliffhanger, they just kind of very quickly tied it all up. Oh, come on. I just need one more half stitch. Oh, come on. Usually don't have this much trouble threading. Okay, let me try a different needle. Maybe it's the eye of that one is being... No. There. Come on. Oh. Come on. Are you serious? Can't really trim this that much because there's not much left to it. There. trying to use up this tiny piece, man. Yeah, I almost never have that much difficulty threading a needle, but my gosh. When you're trying to show somebody, right? The thing you've done. Oh, goodness. Pin stitch didn't go down straight either. Yeah, the thing you've done, you know, so many times you could do it in your sleep. You mess it up. There, that's better. It has to go down without crossing over any fibers, or it won't sort of disappear into the fabric like that, the way I want it to. Okay. Yeah, so I ended up more sort of flattened this way. Now it's sort of extending more this way, so sometimes my diagonals end up as a bit wonky shapes as I follow the colors. Oh dear. I think my problem is I've got a bit of dryness to my skin, and it, as I'm trying to push the needle onto it, it's kind of getting caught on my callus there, which pushes things wonky. There. Yeah, I kind of more push the eye of the needle onto the threads than push the thread ends through the needle, which works most of the time, but yeah, when your skin is kind of roughened, it makes that harder to do. I do put lotion on, but probably not as much as I actually need to. Carry this a ways, keep it from the edge, and then that carry will get stitched over as I fill this in. I'm going to unthread this one because it's going to be a while till I get to it, I think. It's kind of out of the diagonal. I'm going to be coming back up a bit fairly soon to fill in some more, so. Yeah, I try to keep a balance between how many I leave needles on and how many I don't. If I do too many, then it just becomes a big tangled mess. Okay. 550. was working on Firefly yesterday, and the area I'm working is almost all this color and 310 black, so I was blowing through floss like crazy. It seemed like I was constantly having to go back to my envelope to grab a new strand. Yeah, even though there's, 6 strands, I seem to be just blasting through them so fast. Yeah. Well, it must be spring because we've got some birds back. And oh, I saw the bunny. He likes to hang out sometimes. We have under our front bay window, there's an overhang and gravel underneath, and he likes to hide there. And sometimes weeds grow up through the gravel, so yeah, he likes to hide there where he feels safe, and then he eats the weeds, which I don't mind. Yeah. So yeah, I make my own weed killer using vinegar and salt, so nothing harmful. It's like a gallon of white vinegar, and then I think it's 3 cups of salt mixed in. I tell you though, salting the earth, it takes a lot more than you think to prevent the weeds from growing back, because I have to do it like multiple times, and every year they still come back, so yeah. Let's see. Okay. Trying to decide what length of thread to use here. I think it'll end up being a full length. None of my leftover pieces are really quite long enough, so. So yeah, this pattern ends on row 192. So, and top of our diagonal is at 130, so 62 rows. So yeah, I did 60 in the first pass and 70 in the second. That's why we were more than 2/3 done by the time the second pass was done, because it wasn't in complete, exactly even strips. And then 62 for the last one. Yeah. It's a small pattern when it's only 3 passes across. I think I discovered my Firefly is going to be like 10. Yeah. The Peacocks is going to be like 7 or 8 or something. So, yeah. I think my last one, the Soulful Mediterranean, was, I think it was 5 across. I have to think again. It's been a while. You have to kind of do the math, because if I'm going to do a pass that is, taller than the other ones, I prefer to do it closer to the beginning when there's less fabric at the top, because obviously once it's been stitched on, it gets even thicker. And if you try to have, the last pass be your longest one with all that material at the top, it's going to be kind of a squeeze to get it to fit. So it's easier to do it at the beginning of the pattern when there's less fabric at the top. Because I kind of don't really want to do a pass that's only like 10 or 20 rows. That would just be kind of annoying. I'd be having to move the frame all the time. And I try to do that as little as possible. It's why I switched from a 11 by 11 inch Q-snap to a 11 by 17, so it will be a bit bigger. Okay, just gonna check the length of this other one I have parked up here. Yeah, it's not Neither of these are terribly long, so I'm gonna park this one, I think. Yeah, at least I could still use some of it. That's kind of out of the diagonal, so I'm gonna unthread it for now. So I'm gonna get back to it later. I just trimmed my nails, so ooh, I have a harder time getting picking up the needles there. This one from the top is not. Yeah, well, we'll see what I get with it. I think I'm going to carry this one over to the left. And I'll carry the next one down from the right, and if I have to add another thread at some point, then I will. I think I have some leftovers, so if I need just a small piece to do sort of these 3 scattered stitches over here, I can do it then. So, plan ahead a little bit. Ooh. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, I sleep later on the weekends, and I find Monday isn't as hard to get up, but Tuesday, Wednesday is the harder one. Oh, 0.99. Will this put us over the edge? Let's see. Nope. Okay, we'll have to do a few more. These 3 will probably push it over to the next percentage point, to 68%. Yeah, I said we would reach that this session. Yes, there we go, 68. Oops. Let's try to highlight it, not move it. I always forget which mode I'm in. it's funny saying about Zellers. Yeah, I had my first real job there that wasn't paper route or babysitting. It was just seasonal for Christmas, but yeah. Yeah, although I didn't have to file taxes yet because I was like 17 at the time. Plus I made, so little that, yeah. Although it's funny, there were a few years since as an adult I had to file a zero tax return when my son was little, because in order to qualify for some benefits, yeah, you have to be up to date on your taxes. So even if you hadn't earned any income, yeah, you had to file a zero tax return, which felt kind of silly, but yeah. But yeah. Yeah, I did our taxes yesterday, so whew, that's off my plate. Ours aren't that complicated, but yeah, it's always kind of a hassle you never want to deal with. So I'm glad that that's finished. Although it is much easier now. You don't have to use the paper forms. Yeah, it's sure nice you have like the TurboTax online and they guide you through it so easily. And then you can file online too, which is really nice. Yeah, I remember having to do it the old way on paper forms and sending in all your papers, and your envelope would sometimes be, the size of a small phone book. Although as I say that, there'll be younger people will be like, what's a phone book, right? I'm surprised they still print those, because who even uses them anymore? You can Google things so much easier. And on a smartphone, you could Google it and then just, tap on the number to call it and it does it all for you. Yeah, I'm actually trying to think, when was the last time we had a phone book delivered? I think maybe 2018 or something? Yeah. Okay, this is getting to be the cutoff for the diagonal. And then I will be heading back to the top to start working my way downwards again. So then I unthread things at that point. I have a lot of this color leftover bits. Waiting for a kiddo's birthday present to arrive in the mail. I was hoping it would arrive by his birthday, but unfortunately, no. Well, since we ordered it and it had to cross the border, yeah, those generally take a little longer. It says it's cleared customs a few days ago, and then the tracking hasn't updated since then. So I had my last parcel I ordered, same thing. The tracking updated up to a certain point and then it didn't. And then I got the parcel and then the tracking didn't update that it had been delivered for like 3 or 4 days afterwards. It's funny how that works sometimes. Yeah, he wanted a giant Isabel stuffy from Animal Crossing. It's his favorite character. So we went online and found the big ones that's 18 inches tall. So yeah, that's the character he always plays on Mario Kart. He has stickers on his laptop. He just loves that character. So yeah, and I'm hoping it will actually arrive. I mean, I've had generally good experiences with getting refunds for things that haven't arrived, but obviously, you know, you would rather have the thing you bought than have to deal with getting a refund. Then you have the money, but you still don't have the thing that you actually wanted. It was funny because it's not a surprise he prefers to pick out his own present. He's like me. And so we were going through looking at the different sizes of stuffies. Ooh. And then there was one where you could buy like a cushion or a pillow or whatever that was shaped like Isabel's head. And so my husband was teasing him. He's like, oh, you want to buy just Isabel's head? You know, and he's like, what? No, Dad. He says, well, my husband said, you know, it'll be cheaper and then he can get her body later. He's like, Dad, don't be silly, you know. Oh, I'm the one who makes bad puns, but my husband still makes dad jokes like that. Yeah. Like one time, my son said, oh, Mom, did you make banana bread? I said, oh, no, it just appeared there on the counter. He says, well, are we going to have some later? I said, no, it's just for decoration. He says, Mom, stop being like Dad. He was like 8 or 9 at the time. Yeah, it's funny. He likes the end piece, and so does my husband, and I like the center pieces, so we often cut the end off and cut it in half so they get to split it since they like, yeah, they both like it. It works out well. I guess they like that it's drier and chewier, so. I mean, I'll eat an end piece if I have to, but yeah, it's not my favorite. But yeah, as I was looking through and saw the cushions, and I said, oh, get just her head, but I don't think he'll like that. He'll want the actual full stuffed animal. It's funny because his collection still has my stuffed animals from when I was a kid. I kept them. Now we're getting more of a diagonal shape again. Yeah, I was laughing about the whole, you know, buy just her head. I said, yeah, it could be almost like a Godfather thing, but in a non-creepy way. A stuffy head. Okay. Oh, did it again. There we go. Okay. Time to head up to the top again soon. Slowly reducing the number of needles on this magnet here as we work out of the diagonal. Okay. Let's see if this one is threaded or if I unthreaded it. Yeah, I did. Okay, so at that point, I'm going to head upwards again, I should say. Or up a bit anyway. Kind of going over the line a little bit here, but that's just what happens sometimes. These are still threaded, so it's kind of worth it before I unthread them again after I've parked them. Another one to unthread. Let's see if this one is still threaded. Yes, it is. Okay. Do a couple more stitches with that and then unthread it. I'm going to head back to the top. This one, oh, it is still threaded, so do a few more stitches with it then. Well, we will pass 200, and I think that's where I'm going to take a break. My back needs a stretch. Okay, so 201. I usually like to stop on even numbers, but or a multiple of 5, but that's just how it worked out today. So as usual, thank you so much for joining me today, and hope to see you here again another time. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.